Welcome to this Ski Podcast special episode about Beijing 2022. It was recorded as a Facebook Live broadcast on the 9th of February, and my guests were Graham Bell, five-time Olympian and BBC Ski Sunday presenter, and Emily Sarsfield, Olympian at Pyeongchang in the ski across, and now commentating for the Discovery and Eurosport channels. Hi there, and welcome to this Olympics special episode of the Ski Podcast. Currently going live on Facebook. It's about, I think, the third time we've done live on Facebook. Graham isn't quite with us yet, but hopefully he'll be arriving imminently. But I'd like to introduce my guest today, which is Emily Sarsfield. How are you, Emily?
Very well, thanks. And you?
No, you did get married within the last year, so we should call you Emily Sarsfield Power. And in fact, in the green room earlier, you showed me the skis that you've got in the background there, which are one of the most original wedding presents I've ever seen, with lots of signatures of all of your guests on there. Graham's just joined us. Hi there, Graham. How are you?
I'm good.
You've been doing a few night shifts, getting into a different time zone at the moment. How are you finding working for the BBC in Salford?
Interesting. I don't know, kind of being in Salford is a bit peculiar. I think I'd rather be out in Beijing, personally. Mm-hmm. Yeah, even with all the restrictions in place, I think I'd rather be out there, having the experience. I guess one of the one benefit is that, we're at home. If the worst comes to worst, then you can always phone a friend, which is exactly what I'm doing for tomorrow, because I'm doing the aerials commentary.
Okay.
So I have basically phoned a friend, and I've managed to get Ben Benson to come up and do commentary with me for aerials.
And with your current schedule then at the moment, have you just flipped your life so that you're effectively on night shift? Is that how it's working?
Well, actually, no, because I'm not doing that many nights. I tend to be doing I'm doing the punditry stuff for Alpine in the studio, but I'm not commentating on the Alpine. Don't ask me why, but I'm not. And so I basically, today I timed it perfectly, because I woke up, about 5 a.m. and I watched the first run of the women's slalom as live from my hotel room. And I watched it on the computer. And by the time I'd watched the first run, the second run was kind of underway. So I could pick up the second run just in time to watch Charlie ski.
Yeah, amazingly, that's when I turned on this morning as well. She was like the first skier to go down. Unfortunately, it was her second run. She'd had a really good first run.
She had a great second run up until that hairpin, that was that offset hairpin, like 5 gates from home, where she crossed her tips.
It was slightly disappointing, but let's start off with the biggest news of the day. I'm going to go to Emily first, who's competed in the Winter Olympics in ski across previously. Charlotte Banks was our big medal hope in the snowboard cross earlier. I'm guessing that by the time people listen to this podcast, they'll certainly be well aware that she got knocked out at the quarterfinal stage, unfortunately. Emily, do you have any thoughts on that performance?
Yeah,
how it went?
Absolutely heartbreaking for Charlotte, because basically Charlotte right now is the leading world ranked skier. She's done 5 out of 6 World Cups this year on the podium, of which majority of them she's had a gold. She's the current world champion. She was in good stead. She's in good form, and she was ready to go out there and be on the podium. So she'll be absolutely gutted. And I think we saw in her post race interview that she was just kind of she just couldn't put a finger on it.
I think she seemed a bit in shock, at the bottom there. Graham, any thoughts? Is that just bad luck?
No, I've got a controversial opinion. The course is too easy. I mean, it's like I would go and ski that. The previous Winter Olympic ski cross and snowboard cross courses have been properly intimidating. The difficult thing with this course is that the first few Wu-Tangs, they are fairly serious, but from then on in, it's just a ski test or a board test. And that's why the fields are so packed, because no one can get away, because the turns aren't tough enough. If you're the best in the world, you can't get out. If you are out in front, then everyone is going to be just in your slipstream all the way down. And one tiny mistake, opened the door for the Canadian to pass her. And then the Canadian then made a mistake, blocked her, and then let the Aussie through, and then you're out. So it's kind of another, almost like blame the fact that we're racing in China and that we're on hills rather than mountains.
In the whole of the FIS have taken kind of like a kind of step towards making the courses safer, because they were a little bit worried about kind of how many injuries and stuff we've had in the past. So even in our World Cups and stuff now, you don't see the same booters as what you used to see, which is a huge shame for the riders as well as the spectators. Like we want to do the big jumps. Like that's what gets our adrenaline going. But yeah, I mean, you could see in the midsection of that track where it kind of opened up, where Charlotte kind of like, she was sitting in third and she basically just had like lower air than all the other girls and got to the snow, hit the kind of transitions and hit the landings in that sweet spot, triple the next triple, which some people were doubling and singling, and kind of like was set up perfectly. And that's where she took kind of like a lot of her speed. Now that part of the course is very similar to the World Champs course in Idra, where it's kind of got some booters and you can kind of get a bit of speed. But the rest of it is very similar to Montafon, where it's kind of turn into roller into turn, and you can't kind of take away that speed and really kind of like, start to kind of like get going. So you've always got the other guys on your back. Right. So like Graham said, kind of then it comes down to who doesn't make a mistake.
And Graham, do you think that they've made the course, they've set it up so that the riders are more likely to be bunched because that makes for a better race?
No, they had no choice. They just got no vertical. They've got no vertical. Right. They're on a hill. They're on a slope that, you know, would be a kind of blue run for a recreational skier. And you know, it's honestly, it's kind of like the ski cross courses that you get that, you know, they set up in resort for the kids to go down.
It's obviously
maybe not quite as easy as that.
Very disappointing.
I might be exaggerating slightly.
I know that GB Snow Sports Team GB are targeting quite a few medals. There obviously been no medals to date, but there have been some more encouraging performances. I'd probably say the highlight would be Kirsty Muir. Would you pick her out, Graham?
100% highlight. Fantastic hope for the future. You know, if we can keep her uninjured and with the kind of the backing that we've got now on that whole kind of park and pipe program, but also the whole of the UK to kind of back that freestyle development. You know, if you look at the Olympics in BMX freestyle when Charlotte Worthington won gold. You know, she came through and basically learnt a brand new trick to win the gold. I think that the UK, we've got the ability to do that and to back someone to do that.
That was fifth for her in the big air, and slopestyle is her main competition,
isn't
it?
She's only 17, but she's up against two absolute giants with Ledoux and Gu.
But, you know, therefore we're hoping, I think the women's slopestyle is going to be running over Sunday for qualification and Monday for final. So we'll be looking out for her and Izzy Atkin in that event as well, who's the current reigning bronze medalist. Emily, did you watch Kirsty Muir?
Yeah, no, 100%. And it was great to see her ski. She's obviously got amazing talent, and I think like they're nurturing it really well. And I think she's got a lot of hope for the future. I don't think she had a huge amount of pressure on her, which was great. So she was able to just kind of stick at it and perform. And I think I'm going to make something controversial here, and Graham will probably completely disagree with me. But I almost feel as though one of the reasons with Charlotte and stuff like that, these athletes, basically GB have made the kind of qualification so difficult to get to the games. So our team size could be 3 times the size had they taken the international kind of criteria. But GB have made it very elitist and only want people to go medal winners. I feel now that may have changed kind of like what their normal team environment is like, because like Katie Ormeroy doesn't have any team riders around her. Charlotte Banks doesn't have Maisie Potter with her, you know, and is this kind of putting a lot more pressure on those athletes and singling them out so they have to perform? Had they had that normal team environment, like the McCormicks and stuff like that, and Tyler Harding and stuff, could the athletes be more in their normal situation?
Well, did Maisie Potter, did Maisie make the international, did she make the IOC qualifying criteria, and then the BOA decided not to take her?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's on Alpine. The problem is that the IOC have made the IOC and FIS together have made the qualification much harder for the mid-ranked nations. I mean, even the Americans consider themselves a mid-ranked nations because they're not the Austrians or the Swiss or the French, and they are struggling with the qualifying criteria. Yet you can go to the games with 160 FIS points and be a worse skier than, have to do your speed test. A ski instructor in France has more of a difficult qualifying to get your kart pro to become a ski instructor in France than it is to qualify for the Olympic Games. So we've got a whole load of countries that can send one skier, male and female, and yet we're having to cut back on sending, potential top 20, top 15 finishers. We've lost Charlie Raposo, can't go to the games. World Cup points skier. We've lost Laurie Taylor, can't go to the games. World Cup points skier in Madonna this year, finishing in the top 30, scoring World Cup points, can't go to the games. And it's not the fault of the BOA; it's the fault of FIS for allowing this to happen. And the IOC told FIS we need to cut the numbers down, and they decided to take out the whole middle rank instead of getting rid of the let's be frank, the crap ones. They've got rid of a whole load of middle ranked skiers who could actually perform quite well.
I mean, I understand both points there. I think what you said, Emily, about maybe the lack of a squad feeling and only going for potential medalists kind of makes sense for GB Snow Sports, because they have publicly said that they'd like Britain to be the fifth ranked. I think it's by 2030, isn't it? The fifth ranked nation in skiing and snowboarding, which is pretty ambitious, and that would really require progression from one medal in
smart goals. Isn't like the R of smart goals supposed to be realistic?
One medal in Sochi, 2 medals in Pyeongchang would suggest that 3 medals at a very minimum here in Beijing would be the bare minimum for what I believe is a 9 million investment in the team at present.
I just feel as though the net we've set wide, but then we've kind of made it really narrow, and we've now just put all our eggs in one basket. And maybe we should have just set the net. I'm not saying like really wide for every single athlete, but I'm just saying, could we have kind of like kept a little bit more camaraderie within the team and having kind of the ones who just missed the cusp, and kind of had that?
Yeah, I understand the point for sure. Let's take another more positive story. It's not a medal story, but Graham, I remember watching on Ski Sunday you interviewing Makayla Gerken-Schofield, and she came ninth in the moguls, which is a tremendous result. I think certainly the best ever by a British skier.
Oh yes, yeah, totally. Yeah, the first time we've ever qualified anyone for the final 12. Yeah, great results. And, their family's been through a lot. Yeah, she's got more. I think she's got more to come. I think that's great that we've got performances coming like that.
How old is she?
Oh, she's 22, 23.
Okay, so assuming her knees hold up, she's definitely got potential for more Olympics within her then.
Everyone says knees. It's actually the lower back that goes in moguls. Yeah, the back takes the pounding.
Slightly off on a tangent. Emily, I noticed on your social media feeds you bumped into Dave Ryding and Billy Major at an airport. How did that happen? Were you just hanging out and stalking them, or
just hanging out at Heathrow departures? No, I was off skiing for the first time in 2 years, like last week.
You were going to Cromortano, weren't you?
I did, yeah. I went to the City Ski Champs, which was, it was really, really great event. But yeah, just so happened to bump into Dave and Billy on their way out to Beijing. The amount of messages I got saying good luck, because I think somehow the media still think I'm still racing. Life has definitely changed. I am not racing over there. I'll be talking on Eurosport, but I'll not be racing. So,
did you get a chance to talk to them at all?
Yeah, no, for sure. So David
and
I kind of
COVID or anything like that, did you?
No, it was quite funny. Like,
I'm like, stay away from me, Dave.
But,
don't come anywhere.
We were probably the loudest group in the airport, because we kind of like had this 2 meter distance in this kind of like triangle between us, making sure I was nowhere near them, because I was like, no, I'd love to give you a hug, so I gave them an air hug. But yeah, Dave and I used to kind of like race together when we were super little. We've known each other for kind of like years. We were in the same kind of race club and stuff. He's obviously pretty tired on his way out there, because off the back of everyone wanted to talk to him after Kitzbühel. But yeah, he's pretty down to earth though as well. So I think he's just kind of like trying to just.
Seems like they're going out really early. I mean, really early.
Really early, but I don't know if that's because he was a flag bearer or if it's because of the team event. But for Dave, that's not normally like him. He's normally a kind of a guy who would rock up kind of a few days before with his head in the game and get going.
Team events at the very end after the men's slalom. So, I mean, I think they're going out there to test skis on this rotten snow.
But they've got pretty cool test set up out there with the wax cabin's like 30 meters, and then they've got like loads of lanes just above them, and you can kind of book your lane to test your skis. So there is kind of a really cool facility out there for people to kind of like test skis. So
this is not just for Team GB. This is for all of the athletes, is it?
Yeah, no, this is for everyone.
And Graham, can I ask you a question? The temperatures have been very cold. I mean, we saw some of the cross-country skiers taking part in, I think it was like minus 15, excluding wind chill.
Minus 24 when we first started the games in the training runs. Everyone was taking their
okay. But my understanding is that events shouldn't take place if it's less than minus 20 degrees. Is that right?
Well, cross country, yes, because you can freeze your lungs.
Do you think this represents a problem, for the athletes?
No, because it's warmed up. It's a balmy like minus 12 now. Minus 10. Yeah. So, it's definitely a lot warmer than it was when just before the game started, those first 3 days of training for the men's downhill. It was cold and windy. And it seems to have warmed up slightly. Look at the temperatures that come through.
You mentioned the men's downhill. Obviously, the original date was cancelled, but then it did take place. Did it run as you expected? Obviously, it was a win for Switzerland.
Foyts, yeah. Well, I picked Matthias Meyer for the win, and he would have won if he'd not made that mistake on the top. He got bronze, but I think Foyts was a deserved winner. It's funny, I was watching Foyts in the training runs and he just did not look like he wanted to be there. He was not enjoying life at all. His girlfriend's just had their second kid. He's not really expressed much of an interest in going.
Well, it was worth it.
And then he goes and wins. It's like, oh, I've won. Excellent.
And what did you think of that course, Graham?
Actually, they did as good a job as possible. I mean, I was saying before that it's probably the easiest since Clamor in 76. But I'll take that back. I'll say it's maybe the third easiest since Clamor in 76. Sarajevo 84 was easier, and probably Lake Placid 1980. I think that Pyeongchang was close. It's a very similar course. Maybe this was slightly better designed than Pyeongchang. Same kind of struggle with basically the hills. With no snow on them.
Yeah.
But this time they built some kind of, they built some terrain into it so that there's this kind of, airplane turns and, lots of kind of little rollers. And it was actually, in the end, it looked like a fun course, if not a difficult course to ski.
Okay, well, that was certainly one of the highlights so far. I noticed as well that the Team GB uniform apparently has had quite a bit of attention after the opening ceremony. It was trending on the Chinese social media site Weibo. I wondered, you've both worn a GB uniform from Olympic Games before. Did you like them? Are there any you still got in your cupboard, or did they all go out to charity or something?
No, I sold mine. I needed the money for skiing, so they all got sold off pretty much straight away. The one race suit that I liked the best was Sarajevo 84. We had this kind of white and light blue candy stripe design that was kind of across the body like this. It was the Argentinian flag, though, which was kind of ironic because just after the Falklands War, we're racing in Argentine colors. And then we went down to Argentina for a World Cup the following year. And obviously there was a lot of kind of, resentment after the war. But when they saw our race suits, we were kind of, we were greeted with a little bit more friendliness.
What about yourself, Emily? What happened to your uniform from the games?
I think it's still in the loft, actually. So hopefully it's still in one piece. No, I like this. Like, it's a real proud moment to when you do get the kit. So yeah, it is nice to kind of like reuse certain pieces and stuff. I think I wear the leggings quite a bit, but when it's plastered with Great Britain everywhere, I'm not that kind of person to go out and be like Great Britain all over my chest and back and stuff like that. especially when I don't compete anymore. I kind of like try to be it a little bit more stealth. Right. But yeah, I thought the opening ceremony stuff was pretty fun with the Ben Sherman stuff with the Parker and things. It's amazing that they've all got uniform, because there's been so many crazy stuff. Like, I work for a ski clothing brand, and with production across all the brands this year, it's been super difficult to kind of like for production to actually happen. I mean, I had to get the race trousers for the GBT because there's more specific. So I have the Spider trousers, and they put like an Adidas badge over the top of them or whatever. But yeah, like so challenging, kind of like doing all of that stuff.
Okay, I think that was quite interesting. Graham, let me ask you a question. I've asked you about your experiences at the Olympics before, and I remember you said to me that you were less interested in the opening ceremony because all you wanted to do was focus on your particular events. And I just wondered, from your experience of being at the Games, for the athletes who are out there right now, they're in this really strict bubble where they're very limited in where they can go and who they can see, and obviously they desperately want to avoid catching COVID and not being able to compete. How do you think the experience is going to compare for them relative to those times that you had?
Well, the times that I had, we had some great parties, I gotta say, because the men's downhill was the first event, and there was like, when the first couple of games, the first games I did, it was only the downhill. I was only there to race the downhill, but I was there for 2 weeks, and I was quite good friends with Bill Johnson, who ended up winning the bloody thing. And we went out drinking in Sarajevo. I was 18, and we're in these dodgy bars drinking Slivovich or whatever it was. And yeah, that was quite interesting. And then in Calgary, the same. Calgary was just a massive party. In Calgary, you could go out, and then if you wanted to get a lift home, you would just stick your thumb out, and someone would stop because you were wearing your Great Britain. That's the time to wear your Great Britain jacket. And they would drive you out of your way to get back to the Olympic Village, and you'd stumble in about 2:00 in the morning and wake up everyone else that was there trying to.
Which sounds brilliant. And if we compare that to the experience that they're having at the moment, do you think it affects psychologically your build up to the events if you're restricted in the way that they are just now?
I think there's a lot more pressure. I think it's just the whole COVID thing has just made it more pressure. You can't have your family out there. You can't have, you can't go and see people. You can't go to the shops. You can't release from the bubble. And so the bubble is just so incredibly intense. Like Makayla Schifrin now, she's blown out in 2 races. She can't even go and see her boyfriend who's at the Games with her. Kilder, is there. He's messaging her on Instagram.
That is awful. I worked as one of the volunteers, a games maker at 2012, and I got to hang around the Olympic Village on one of the days, and it was great because you saw loads of athletes wandering around and just chilling out. Maybe they were going to food halls, or there was Powerade places they could pick up stuff, etc. But I guess none of that is probably going on now. I mean, when you were out,
not at all.
Yeah, when you were out Emily, I'm guessing there were ways to kind of relieve the boredom and or pressure in the lead up to your events.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, I spoke to some of the guys who were heading out there, like from all sorts of different teams and stuff. And basically, they just said the last month has been the most isolating they've ever had of their kind of life, because they've essentially so scared of getting COVID that they put themselves in the middle of nowhere for kind of like 3 weeks. Some of them have not even been on skis in 3 weeks because you can't get a kind of private ski resort. If they wanted to, they were trying to do some private training on a private lift and stuff, it was going to cost them kind of 10,000 euros. So they sacked that off. All they've done is physical training. Some of them have not been on skis since kind of like, I don't know, January time. So it's going to be like a good 3 weeks. And if that's what you do normally do day in, day out. So they're not allowed to go to the food hall when they're out there because their nutritionist's got to get their food, because again, it's a risk of catching COVID. Like when you're in the food hall, like I love a social meal. But you've basically got
to chat, Emily. You like to chat.
You and I are terrible on interviews because you can't get a word in. I enjoy it with either of us. You've got these plastic films up next to you, and I mean, like, I probably shouldn't say this, but I remember when I first went into the food hall, I was really quite taken aback. They were handing out kind of like all sorts of different things when you enter in, and one of them was a basket of condoms. So it was quite a shock to me that they were handing out, like, you know, basket of condoms to people at the games. So yeah, that's kind of, I don't think there'll be any of that.
Well, sadly, all of that has changed. But I think that's quite interesting because overall, it does give an insight into why it is so different. And you're saying, you know, for example, Makayla Schifrin, who's obviously, you know, not had a good experience of the game so far, and you know, other people. Who knows how people adjust to the different circumstances? Generally, we're all creatures of habit. And, you know, athletes in particular always have a certain routine that can have different elements to it. And when some of those are taken away, it can make it very difficult, changing the environment completely. So, you know, I do feel for the athletes out there, but equally they are at the Olympic Games and we still have, you know, quite a lot of the games left. I wondered, Graham, what you'd be looking out for in the remainder of the games. What particular events are on your watch list?
Well, Dave, men's slalom. They've got to water the hill, though. They've got to put some water into that hill. They've got to use the injection bar. We can't have a men's Olympic slalom that basically you've got to ski an easy hill at 80% because if you go too hard, then your ski breaks away. No, they've got to stick some water in the slalom hill.
Okay, so that's Wednesday morning. I think the qualification or run one at 2:15 a.m. and the second run 5:45 a.m. So that will be one to watch. What about yourself, Emily? What's on your watch list apart from Dave riding?
Yeah, well, obviously I'm going to say ski cross, and yeah, hopefully kind of the tracks kind of start at the same, but then they kind of do what Pyeongchang did and they go off and then rejoin again for the finish. So hopefully kind of like the riders will be able to kind of use those turns and those berms a little bit differently, and it won't be just a matter of who makes a mistake. So obviously we've got Ollie Davies in that, but also I'm looking forward. I want a little comeback and a real nice success story for Charlotte, because she deserves to be on that podium. She's one of the best, or if not the best, snowboard cross rider out there. So they've obviously got the for the first time the mixed SBX race, snowboard cross race, where it's kind of like a male and a female team up, and they don't go together, but essentially the boy rides down first, and as soon as they cross the finish line, then the females are kind of held back for as much time as their rider was behind the first person through, and then they can go on the track. Now, the good thing about this is if you've got a good girl rider, that's important. You're better off with a strong female than you are with a strong male, because even if your rider falls and stuff and is 4 seconds behind, you actually, I think the longest time you can get is 2 seconds or 1.5 seconds held back. So as long as she can keep in touching distance of those girls and keep kind of within the slipstream, she's got another chance.
But she's got to overtake her way through. I mean, we're saying that Hugh, who's basically going to ride for on the British team on the guys' side, he's got to basically just try and stay in the slipstream and not necessarily win, but just not be too far behind, so that when Charlotte starts her race, she can just get into the slipstream, but then she's got to make 2 overtaking movers.
But Hugh is only there for this event, right?
Well, actually, this is a little bit controversial. So Hugh, again. So Hugh actually qualified for this event, and they made it kind of a little bit of an opening for him. But since then, I believe that he has actually been allowed to enter the individual snowboard cross as well, which is a little bit tough for the other athletes who missed the kind of qualification criteria for the individual on their own. And the goalposts may have changed slightly. It's just very hard for the ones who've been left behind, but kind of it's another opportunity for a medal for Great Britain. So let's take it.
I got one more question for you, Graham. I was watching the snowboard parallel slalom the other day, which I think you were commentating on.
I was, yes.
Why do we not have anyone in that? Sure, is it just that?
Do you know how many alpine snowboards that we've sold in the UK in the last 4 years?
23.
None.
None, right? Okay.
None.
Okay.
None. And they're not even selling that many in the Alps either now. If you look at the age of the sport, the riders are just getting older and older and older because there's no one really coming in. There's no development program alpine snowboarding. So I don't know what the future of the sport is.
Right. You think that's one that's kind of on its way out?
Well, you would think, when you've got like, I think it was 2 41-year-olds in the last 4 or something like that.
Well, that's it. Encouraging for all of us, though, Graham.
Well, yeah, I mean, Johan Claret is 41. He won a silver in the men's downhill. So, it does show that the age is going up on all sports because, well, maybe not on the freestyle side, but, sports science is enabling you to keep going, keep your body going for longer. But yeah, I'm not sure of the future of PGS. And I'm starting to look forward to, the next Olympics. I mean, I guess the Italians are reasonably good at it. So,
they'll decide whether to keep it in, right?
There'll be a bit of pressure. There was the big debate about aerials as well, about, should aerials still stay? And, and I was like, well, as long as the Chinese are good at aerials and we've got this Olympics in China, then aerials will be on the Olympic program. But that's another one that's kind of like, is it still going to be around? With big air big air ski is now in, because they put snowboard big air in, but they didn't put ski big air in because they had aerials. It's completely different. It's like the difference between tumbling and diving, the way that they rotate and spin. So yeah, I mean, who knows what's going to happen in the future with the Winter Olympics? But it's always going to be a difficult one to stage, a games. So they're always going to have to try and reduce numbers, and they've got new sports coming in. Ski mountaineering's coming in.
Is it? Yes, yeah.
Emo, because the Italians are really good at that, and they want to emo in. But you, as a host, you do get to have a choice.
Yeah. Well, I love ski touring, and ski mountaineering is the competitive side of that.
Yeah,
essentially, I'd really like to watch that. The thing I'd really like them to bring in would be telemark, because we have Jasmine Taylor, who's had such an amazing career and so many World Cup podiums, and never had a chance to compete in the Olympics.
I know, and it's crazy. Telemark have been banging on the door for I don't know how many years, like years and years, and then Skimo comes along and gets in the first time. Not. I mean, really? Curious.
Yeah, that's a shame. Right, I'm going to call an end to this now. So I'd like to thank you for joining me. We'll be watching the Olympics for the remaining kind of 10 days of competition. Hopefully, we'll see some British success. But just in general, I love watching people, athletes who are at the top of their form competing, and it doesn't really matter what the specific event is. There's always a narrative and there's always a story in there that makes it really interesting. And listener, you'll be able to hear Emily commentating or contributing to Ski Across on the Discovery Channel on Thursday of next week, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's look it up.
17th and 18th. I know the date.
On Discovery. Graham will be continuing on the BBC for their Olympics coverage for the remainder. So I'd like to thank you, Emily and Graham, for joining us. And thank you, listener, for joining us. And let's just enjoy the rest of the games.